what does this mean in terms of what to expect about the story of this country, the narrative of this country, whether it's about martial law, about the Marcoses, or the role of the family? What could we expect of that?
I'll be very quick about this because I'm sure Tony has something to say about. For me, this is counter-revolution. In fact, I'm already working on a number of stuff about Marcos, and the title is Counter-Revolution. Tapos na, nung 1986 election, revolution, Edsa, whatever you want to call it, against Marcos, na-reverse na yan. Tapos na yan. So we have completely, I mean, you go to the all key numbers, Pew Survey, World Value Survey, Asia Barometer, more than 60% of Filipinos don't see martial law in negative light. And we saw in this election, 58% of Filipinos voted for Ferdinand Marcos Jr. So the whole Edsa narrative and all it's out. Unless the opposition reinvents itself fundamentally and brings back the trust of people in liberal democracy. But now, effectively, counter-revolution has won. And this is nothing unique. We saw that in France, the Bourbons came back, another Napoleon came into power. We see this trend all around the world. And in the case of the Philippines, at least, we had 30 years before another Marcos came back to power. But what did we do in that 30 years? Sa tingin ko talaga nakakulang tayo. So this is time for opposition, or whoever believes in liberal democracy, to go back to the drawing board and do their assignment and figure out how can we reinvent and regain the people's trust in liberal democracy. Because liberalism right now is a negative term in the Philippines. It's a pejorative term. And that for me is a scary thing. That for me is a very, very scary thing.
Din Tony.
Yeah, I have a little less of a negative judgment of what has happened the last 30 years, in the sense that we actually made a lot of progress in terms of getting money back from the Marcoses, in terms of compensation for human rights, and getting that done, although we didn't hold people accountable for that because we didn't have a truth telling process, but we did have a human rights compensation process. I think over 10,000 victims of martial law were able to get compensation. Unfortunately, there were over 30,000 that were not able to get that because the evidence was not very strong in their particular case. I think, and this is where I also agree with Richard, the success of the Marcos campaign is not, for me, a vindication of the Marcoses. It is the vindication of a Marcos Duterte alliance. Because it was very clear that the reason they won, and at least they won this big, was they got together. The Marcos Dutertes got together and was very disciplined in keeping that campaign. But I actually also think that it, in fact, would be good to move really forward on the issues that are really more important now and matter more now. Some of which are rooted in the past, right? But some are entirely new. You know, for example, for me, moving forward, climate justice is a very big issue. Disinformation, those are kind of the two twin issues now moving forward. Disinformation and how to deal with these challenges is really quite an enormous thing that has to be done. But I do agree that you need a political movement and you need a strong political party because you cannot defeat the families with another family. You cannot defeat the personalities and the celebrity by looking for another family celebrity, because even when you do that, you will turn out creating your own monster or actually not having a permanent solution to the problem. I think that you can only do that if you have strong political movement. In fact, that turns into a political party once election time comes. I mean, and the ball is actually on the Robredo sort of alliance created in the campaign, because even if it failed, right, they were able to triple Robredo's numbers I actually thought personally that Robredo could not breach 15%, not because of her character or person, but simply because of the extent of the disinformation and the failure to deal with it. You know, you realize this. I think all media people realize this. You have to deal with disinformation right away, immediately, decisively, aggressively. Because if you don't, then you'll be defined by that, and it's going to be more expensive, more difficult to fight that 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the road.
Okay.
But it is remarkable to me that Robredo was able to achieve nearly 30%, given that kind of extent of the disinformation. And that's because of the alliance in the end, right? What started as a very, very narrow alliance, you know, a very small group was actually tripled by just getting other groups together, from the most conservative to the most progressive elements of our society. So
Okay.
there's hope there if in fact we build on that.
Okay.
That's how I see things unfolding.